I mean,
I want to get into the Belichick because
incredible.
There's a couple different angles I want to take on this.
Yeah.
And this one, the take that I have on Bill Belichick before we get to his Hall of Fame ballot is I think if he doesn't coach at North Carolina, if he just did TV for another year, I think he's back on an NFL sideline. And I wonder deep down inside if Bill Belichick regrets coming to college football because of the amount of turnover, the lack of inspiring hires and candidates out there. You cannot tell me that there were 9 or 10 teams that were not going to give Bill Belichick an opportunity to come lead their organization and try to take them to the promised land. And I think this year really did some damage to Bill Belichick's reputation as a coach. And I know it's college and it's not the NFL, but I think his girlfriend's situation, the way that he's been dragged around by her and she's calling a lot of the shots, I think that scared off a lot of teams. I think Bill Belichick would have been back in the NFL if he didn't go to college at all.
Yeah, that to me, I think the girlfriend thing is probably the biggest because it almost gives me like the feeling of like he's kind of off his rocker right now. You know what I mean? Like he's not thinking properly. How I think with the Hall of Fame thing, my thought was how many guys has he burned over the years? Because it's the media members that really, you know, he always had those quirky press conferences where he didn't say much. We're on to Dallas, we're on to Buffalo, we're on to whoever it was, right? But like stuff like that is usually a proponent of many, many years of bad relationships with the media, right?
Yes.
To be that good where you're such a no-brainer that you could somehow not get in. If that guy doesn't get into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, you can never vote a coach in it on the first ballot, right? It's almost impossible to explain if you decide to. And then I thought about what could it have been? Was it the bad relationships with the media? Could it have been Spygate and Deflategate, which obviously to me didn't really jump into my brain right away for whatever reason? You know what? And then I thought if it's that, then you got to give Tom Brady some pause when he comes in, right? The same guys who, because if that's how they're going to explain this away, like they're never going to say, I didn't vote him in because he was mean, right? They're going to say, I didn't vote him in because he cheated. Well, at the same, your starting quarterback, who's unquestionably the greatest player to ever play football, he cheated too.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, I'm interested now to see how that goes in 2 years or whatever when he's up on the ballot.
I don't think I've ever seen, like our society, in sports especially, you don't see people agree on much. There's usually some dissension.
Yes.
I haven't seen anybody that will go out publicly, put their name on it, and say, nope, he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this is the greatest coach to walk an NFL sideline. What are we doing? It makes absolutely no sense other than petty humans taking it out on Bill Belichick. I do think it is a lesson in how to treat people because I don't think Bill Belichick has treated the press great. And I do think it goes further. Like you and I, all we experience is the clips where he's just in there and mumbling here on the Cincinnati. And like he's kind of jerky. He's like that all the time. For his entire career, he has never been cordial. He's been a jerk to him. He's viewed them as the enemy, which a lot of times they are, and it's a battle, and he's not the only coach that views them that way. But I think if he treated the media better, I think this wouldn't even be a conversation today. And then the fact that you can throw on an excuse like Spygate, which we could have that debate, like how much does that affect his legacy and all those things? I get it, because I do think it's serious. I don't think Deflategate was. I think that was dumb. We're talking about inflated footballs.
Yeah.
But I think Spygate was a little bit more serious, and it was nefarious.
Sure.
If you want to try to sell me on that, sure. But I think it is way more about guys just not liking Bill Belichick and saying, all right, you've been a jerk to me. I'll show you what I can do. And I have a vote, and I'm going to use it against you.
Well, then I guess it comes down to, is it the Hall of Nice People or is it the Hall of Fame, right? Because I hate to break the news, guys. You go through much of these Hall of Fames, there's really not too many like Nobel Prize winners in there, like Peace Prize guys. Like there's a lot of bad dudes who weren't doing the greatest things, not upstanding citizens, as much as you hate to say it, because you see them out there and they're your heroes. Unfortunately, a lot of guys aren't like that. If we're going to start using that as part of the reason we don't put the greatest of all time, I mean, he's unquestionably 6 rings as a head coach, 2 as a coordinator.
Yeah.
Right? It's not close. So for him to not get in, that means nobody gets in on. We just got to come to terms with no head coach is ever going to get in first ballot. I'm interested to see now how Andy Reid does down the road.
Mike Shanahan's coming up.
Yeah.
Andy Reid's coming up. Like there's a couple that are coming up next year that they're going to have to be delayed now. Like that could be the impact because Belichick's could. unless they screw him over again. Like, there's no chance. This is just a statement, right? This is just a one-year story. You never know, though.
Well,
how much of a statement do they want to make?
Well, you know who they got with that a bunch of years ago was Terrell Owens, who unquestionably on field is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but they deemed him a coach killer, they deemed him a locker room killer, and they deemed him a team killer. And they made him wait. Did they make him wait 2 years? Did he not get in for 2 and got in on his 3rd?
I think so.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like for a guy like Terrell Owens with absurd talent like that. But guys, that's where the human element always comes into it. And we talk about it a lot. We've talked about robot umpires and we've talked about stuff like that. I think when you leave the human element, in the equation, you're always prone to have emotional people who, but look, that's the way it's going to be.
I think there's some similarities. Barry Bonds,
of course,
was one of the most hated guys by the media, and I think they have used him as an example, and they've got an excuse with the PED use, and they can do it, and they can hold that over him for the rest of the time, potentially. I think that has something to do with it. I played for a coach that was the exact opposite of Bill Belichick. Bobby Bowden was the nicest, friendliest person you could ever. And I think it's just a lesson on how to treat people. If you're nice to people, they'll be nice in return. And guess what? They might be less likely to run you off if you're struggling. Right. It's harder for them to write that scathing article of how hard it is and we've got to make a change. And Coach Bowden probably got extra time on the back end of his career when Florida State was struggling, because he was such a nice human being. And guess what? Everyone reveres him as one of the greatest coaches of all time. Now, Belichick's legacy is complicated, all because he was kind of an a-hole to the media. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I definitely see some of that Barry Bonds thing right there. I mean, Barry Bonds won a couple of MVPs before I think any of us ever thought he took a steroid. But I think the Barry Bonds thing comes into play when he had his best years at like 36, 37, 38, 39. That's where it became so glaring, you know what I mean? But yeah, absolutely being miserable to the people who vote for all those years didn't help him in any way. And of course, man, that should be the way we handle everything, right? Treat people nicely, treat people with respect, and people are going to want to do good for you. I mean, that's just it's like a concept of life. Like, do the right thing, treat people well, and you'll go further in this life, you hope, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly it has something to do with, I very much believe if Bill Belichick was nicer to everybody, he would be a Hall of Famer.
Right. People would have been able to overlook Spygate, overlook Deflategate.
Yeah.
They would have given it a pass. Instead, now they're making it a bigger deal than it probably was.
And can I ask you this? Just a personal opinion. Barry Bonds cheated, and Barry Bonds was the one making the plays.
Right.
I do think maybe Spygate and Deflategate impacts me less because Bill Belichick might have been the mastermind behind it, but he wasn't the one out there in the pads. He wasn't the one who had to make the plays. So I think there's
so here's where I disagree with you.
There's a buffer in between there.
Here's where I disagree with you.
Okay.
The difference for me is Barry Bonds, I think he should be in because everybody was doing it.
What? Oh, no.
Like in his era, I think most people that were playing were all using a lot of the same things that he was.
Right.
He was just that much greater and still made him that much more. Spygate was unique. Not everybody was trying and had access to practice film.
Right.
So I do think that makes this one a little bit different.
Well, I think Barry Bonds should get in simply because he still had to hit the home runs and he still had to lift the weights. And you know what I mean? So that there, in a sport like that where you're not inflicting injury on people, I don't care at all about steroids. I hate to say it, but
I just think they should have a whole era, like when you and sorry for the guys that were clean, sorry, but your whole era was tainted.
Right.
This era of baseball was tainted by PEDs. And I'm fine. Then put everybody in and say, you know what? These were the best of the best, no matter what.
But at the end of the day, the guys who were cheating were the ones who were carrying out the action. I do think now Bill Belichick wasn't the one throwing the footballs. Bill Belichick wasn't the one catching the footballs or blocking the D tackles, you know? So I think maybe that little buffer between there maybe has softened me on it. Like, I don't think it's as big a deal. The deflated football is ridiculous.
Right. That was really dumb.
Yeah, that was
ridiculous.
All
right. So the moral of the story, treat people right.